Thing up and going? We'll start with Rich. Did you send it pledge of allegiance?
No.
Let's just wait for them to get the computer thing going.
What are we doing?
All set?
No.
Okay, for that, Dave to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
That's
I'll
Laurel.
I'll second it, Meg Scott.
Meg Scott, a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, it's unanimous. Approval of the consent agenda?
I move approval of the consent agenda.
I would like to make just one little correction, or two corrections actually, to the February 22nd special meeting. Where is it? Under number 2, approval of agenda, it was actually me that approved the agenda, not Laurel. So that's Lauren
Which
Christensen.
one are we looking at again? Just so-
We're looking at the February 22nd special meeting, the mass meeting.
22nd.
Yeah. So there's just 2 times that it says Steinhauser instead of Christensen. So number 2, approval of agenda, and under number 3, I was the one who seconded the motion also. That's it.
Okay, with those corrections, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as corrected?
Is there a second? Tim made the motion.
Yeah, I make the
I
motion.
don't think there was, I'll make a second. with
Okay.
the-
With the amendment?
Yep.
Yeah, as amended.
Yep.
Yeah.
Any other comments?
That's good.
All in favor?
Aye.
Audience of citizens? Is there anyone who'd like to address the board? Okay. Portland Public Schools Spotlight.
All right, I'm excited for this.
Student Leadership Awards.
So I have 2 very special people to introduce and recognize tonight. So I am pleased to introduce to you this year's recipients of the CABE Student Leadership Award. Just a little background. So to be eligible for this award, we're looking for individuals that meet the following criteria. Leadership skills that should include willingness to take on challenges, capability to make difficult decisions, concern for others, ability to work with others, willingness to commit to a project, diplomacy, ability to understand issues clearly, and the ability to honor a commitment. Certainly I can think of no more important leadership skills than are outlined in those. So I have 2 young ladies who I am going to embarrass and have come on up here as I say some nice things about. The first is someone you will probably recognize, has been here several evenings and helped us facilitate our meetings. Can I have Victoria Bailey come on over here? Maybe I can, I'm going to embarrass you and have you stand up here in front of the board, and as I read something nice, and then I have a certificate to present to you, and then of course if the board members have any questions. So this is Victoria. You probably recognize her. She has been working carefully behind the scenes and making sure that our meetings are broadcast and that all of our it's on YouTube and Zoom, correct? Well done. So, Victoria Bailey, throughout the years at Portland High School, Victoria has established herself as one of the most promising young leaders in our school community. She has shown, through her words and actions, her willingness to support her fellow students and staff at Portland High School. From showing her school spirit as a cheerleader and performing on stage in the jazz band, to supporting the student voice at the supporting student voice at the high school as a member of the Student Senate, Victoria showcases her leadership skills to the benefit of our entire building. Academically, Victoria's strong work ethic and abilities have earned her a place in the top of her class. Outside of the school, you will find Victoria volunteering her time at the Portland Public Library, working to help support our town tech program as an employee at a local business. Victoria has organically grown into an outstanding student and a leader, and we are incredibly proud of her accomplishments. We are excited to see all the wonderful things that she will continue to accomplish at both Portland High School and beyond. Congratulations, Victoria.
Congratulations.
And thank you for helping us out.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Excellent. And I saw her over there. Is Lily Larson here? And you probably know Lily's mother, Miss Larson. She's back there. One of the finest math teachers I've ever seen in the classroom. So this is Lily Larson. Lily is the embodiment of what it means to be a leader, both in and outside of the classroom. She is caring, compassionate, and has been incredibly supportive of the entire Portland High School community. Lily has been recognized as a strong leader of our track and soccer teams and has served as an elected member of our Student Senate, where she has proactively supported her classmates' voices. Her willingness to contribute in the classroom has helped our staff recognize and recommend her to serve on several committees supporting climate and culture change at the high school. Lily has volunteered her time in a variety of ways in school, including tutoring her peers, helping teachers get ready for the next academic year by assisting with organizing their classrooms, and partnering with our athletic coordinator to prepare uniforms and supplies for our teams. Outside of school, she is also employed at an area business. Lily's outstanding work ethic has earned her a spot in the top 10 of her class. We are incredibly proud of Lily and are excited to see all the wonderful things she will accomplish in her final year at high school and beyond. Congratulations, Lily Larson.
Congratulations.
Congratulations, Lily.
It's all downhill.
Charles, tell us a little bit about the award. Now, they've got recognized for their leadership from
Yep.
CAVE. Are there financial, any financial
I don't think
scholarships
so.
or
I think
anything
this
with
is
it?
just- it's
Just
just the
noting
sport.
that they're really
Yep.
school leaders and
Certainly can go on the resume and on the CV and help
Absolutely.
in their application process for any number of scholarships.
for any number of scholarships. Great.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations.
Yeah, exciting work.
Okay, next is our student representative reports.
So we have Leah and Sean. Thanks, Sean.
Hello.
Hi everyone. There's Leah. All right,
Hi, Leah.
I can start for tonight. So, first update that I have is, and so the seniors will be presenting their capstone projects. And if you don't know what capstone is, it's a project that we start conducting our first year of high school, and it kind of continues with us through senior year. And then senior year, we present it in front of a panel of teachers, and then either we'll pass or fail. Hopefully we'll pass, but it is a graduation requirement. So that'll be a big night for myself as well as the other seniors, and also one step closer to graduation. And then secondly is that the optional mask wearing has been very well received by the student body. I've talked to a few people about this and they've agreed with me, but the spirits have seemed higher in the school the last few days, and it's really nice to truly see everybody again. And that's all I have.
So the high school production of The Little Mermaid will be on March 18th and 19th, and grades 9 through 12 have been working very hard on this production, and they are also very excited to perform for an audience after 2 years. And the high school winter athletics have started to end. A few athletes from the indoor track team made it to the state open championships, and some even set a few school records along the way. The wrestling team recently competed at the Class S championships, and they will also send a few athletes to opens.
Okay, we'll move on to communications and updates. Mr. Superintendent?
Okay, a few communications and updates for you. First, we have a retirement of a very, very important person who has very big shoes to fill. So in your packets, you'll see that Carl Johnson has indicated to us that he will retire as of July 8th. I spoke with Carl several times about this. I tried to talk him into staying longer. He's ready to go. After a long career here in town, he's gonna. We're gonna enjoy the last several months with him. And I did tell him that he's not off the hook. 4:45 a.m. several days a week in the winter. I'm expecting a call from him to tell me how the roads are. But we're going to look forward to celebrating with Carl. We're going to have him come and certainly, as we cruise into the spring, make sure that he's recognized for a very important career here in the community. So I did include that letter for you and more to come as we celebrate Carl and his coming retirement. I did include also a letter of resignation from Hope Larson. And there was a communication from Darcy and Phil Parmalee commenting on the decision to essentially repeal the two policies from the last board meeting. So I didn't include those things in your packet. Also, it was a later edition, but I did include the March 1st enrollment update for you. You should find that in there. So those are the communications I have for you this board. Any questions about any of those so far? All right. Give you a quick update on COVID-related information. I have been in all of the buildings the past couple of days, and I agree with the students' observations that generally the mask optional is being well received. I would say a majority, probably 65 to 80% of our students are not wearing masks, but they are. I'm being very respectful of our students who are choosing to wear masks, and I appreciate that. And I know our principals do and our teachers do, and are working hard to make sure that we have a climate where all students who are making the decisions about whether to wear masks or not wear masks are supported in those decisions. Couple updates for you on the COVID numbers. They are going way down. So I just got this tonight. I didn't have a chance to put it in your folder, but I will. The numbers, just like we saw last year, have dropped significantly. That we're down to, in Portland, 10 cases per 100,000, which is a significant decrease from, I think, over 200 a few weeks ago. In the schools, we all have found since the beginning of this that there is a direct relationship between the amount of COVID in the community and in the schools. And again, we see that. So during the week of February 7th, we had 6 student cases and 2 staff cases reported. The next week, during the week of 2/14, 1 student case and 1 staff case reported. And from 2/21 to 2/28, 0. Right. So again, I think that our experience in the schools is it reflects these trends. We are headed in the right direction. I love that number 0. When I got those numbers, I gave Dave Opazinski, who updates me, a big Yahoo. So the number is 0. I hope I haven't jinxed it, but I really want it to stay 0. So I thought I would update you on those 2 things. And any questions, either about the adjustment to the new approach to masks or the amount and numbers of COVID we're seeing in the schools?
I just have a quick question. As we talked about last Tuesday, and I know that you had just heard from Russ about the idea of contact tracing,
Yep.
not to exclude students, but to have the information and be able to share with families who might be affected. I know that was new last week. I'm wondering if you have any time to think about it and talk to our nursing staff and consider whether that's something we'll try and implement?
I did. As a matter of fact, Dawn, who's on tonight, and I met with Dave this morning. Dave followed up with Russ and got a better sense of what Russ is looking for. It's not really going to be contact tracing for COVID. It's going to be awareness of what's happening in the schools, right? And if we start to see any clusters in any of the classrooms or grade levels, we'll know, right? I mean, it doesn't involve a massive investigation to start to identify chains of transmission. So that's happening, right? That the nurses and the principals and the teachers are aware of that. We are working strategically now that if we start to identify clusters, we're going to kind of flood those zones with the test kits, right? So if there are any some districts, you probably know, made the decision to just hand out the test kits wholesale and let everybody test themselves all at once. We may be able to do that as, particularly tomorrow, Carl is picking up another shipment of COVID tests and we're gonna have a lot more. But what we decided is that we were gonna be more strategic about it, so that if we started to identify any chains of transmission at the classroom or grade level, we would get the kits out immediately to the potentially affected students and have everybody test themselves. And that's what we're gonna do going forward. So we're not really calling it contact tracing, because to us, contact tracing means a very extensive, labor-intensive, time-consuming process where it involves interviews and looking at class lists and bus lists and seating charts and every interaction that happened in the school. That's not what we're doing. It's more of an awareness so that if we start to have reports of cases, we can identify if there are potential chains of transmission, and then start pulling in the tools that we have, which would include test kits or recommendations that people wear masks or recommendations that people go pursue PCR testing and vaccination. So we are on it. We're keeping a very close eye.
Okay, thank
The
you.
only other question I have is there any instructional changes after you met with the teachers in terms of the younger students or the kids who are not vaccinated or preschool? Were there any instructional changes to class sitting or whatever?
No. No.
Everything's pretty comfortable?
Pretty comfortable, yeah.
Good.
Okay, a couple other things I want to just make you aware of. What we are aware of and happening is, of course, all of us in this room, I think, are absolutely heartbroken by what we're seeing in Eastern Europe. Right? I mean, what an absolute nightmare. Right? So I have to give a shout out and appreciation to Eric Martin, who very quickly has happened so fast, right? That he has now identified and curated some resources for our teachers that our teachers can use to help students understand this terrible thing, right? And this Friday in our Friday communications to parents, we're going to be sharing some resources with parents. How we talk to our students in developmentally appropriate ways about this is going to be very important. And obviously we all wish for peace as quickly as it can come, right? What a terrible thing. These are the times that test all of us, and our teachers play a very important role in helping students understand and avoid the fear and stressors of and very anxious moments that we're all living through right now. So unfortunately, just when we start to get out of COVID, we're now into another fill in the blank war. Right? So we're going to obviously work with our students and faculty to make sure that we support our families and help give people the resources to make sense of this otherwise senseless thing that's happening. Okay, I have some other not so great news. You may be aware that our Head Start program had to temporarily suspend operations. As a reminder, we don't run Head Start. We lease a couple of classrooms in Valley View to Head Start. Head Start is a federally funded program. Our Head Start program serves 15 students from the towns of Portland, Middletown, and Cromwell. They ran into a staffing problem. Some of their staff resigned, and they weren't able to staff their buildings, staff their classrooms. So they suspended their operations on February 11th. Jessica has been in close contact with them and with ACES, and they are expecting to reopen Head Start on March 7th. So I just wanted to make you aware of that and see if you had any questions about what's happening with our Head Start relationship. Okay. 3 other very quick ones. One, I want to give I came from the National Technical Honor Society induction ceremony right before this. It was wonderful. Congratulations to all of the students who were inducted into that and their families, and congratulations and appreciation to Corey and all of the CTE teachers for bringing that to us. So that was a wonderful event tonight. Got to say a few words and congratulate those students. In the area of technology, Mr. Martin and I attended a webinar tonight on the new remote learning standards that the state released. The remote learning standards provide us a pathway to potentially offer some remote online courses to our students in grades 9 through 12. We have no definitive plans to do that yet, but it's another thing that we're going to be very closely looking at, and where it makes sense, we might operationalize it in the future. So the remote learning standards are out. One of the questions that Mr. Martin asked at tonight's webinar was whether those standards open the door to the possibility of any remote snow days. That is not what they're for. They're for something different. So there is no indication that we would be able to do remote snow days yet, but I know that that is still very much on the minds of some people. So stay tuned, and we'll see where this takes us. Finally, just tonight, it's amazing how these things seem to hit my inbox right before I come to board meetings. I'll just read it to you if you haven't seen it. This would be a wonderful opportunity for us. March 1st, Governor Ned Lamont today announced that he is proposing legislation that will establish a grant program to assist public school districts in paying for heating, venting, and cooling, HVAC, and other indoor air quality improvements to school buildings. He explained that the program is needed to help schools make necessary infrastructure upgrades in response to the health impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic. I would also add, and in response to the fact that we can't keep our schools open if it gets hotter than 90 degrees, right? We desperately need HVAC systems. Now, I share that with you. I'm going to be watching this very closely. If there's any advocacy work you do or have any connections with state legislatures, I would strongly encourage people to support this program. Indoor air quality is something that is needed in all of our buildings, and I will keep a very close eye on it, and if those revenue streams become available, I will let you know when and how we can access them, because they're desperately needed.
Interesting.
Yeah, interesting.
That would be good.
And it will also inform the work of our facility study committee as we move forward with that. So, that's all I have for you.
All right. Next is business and financial update. Hello.
Hello, glad to be here. So attached in your files, you'll find the most recent authorized spending report. It's through February 28th. To put in perspective, that's 8 months into the year, so about 67%. So if you take a look at the totals all the way to the end column, 33% left should be around where the average should be, unless it's specific accounts where we encumber full amounts for the entire year. So just by glancing at all the accounts, you'll see which ones are good, which ones aren't good, but there's reasons for all of those. But this is just a great report that we share that just gives a snapshot of where we are right now. And if there are any questions about any of the accounts, I have my notes of everything.
My question for you, Stephanie, was just around our end of year projections. Around the budget time, you kind of shared with us, not an actual number, but your best guess sort of for where we were going to end at the end of the year. Are we still kind of on target, or have things shifted?
So we're still on target. There's a little shift in certain areas, but one, obviously what's going on. So gas, anything like that, we don't know what the effect's going to be. Electricity, I'm still watching. Natural gas, I'm still watching, because it's been so cold. So usually at this point, I can tell what gas is going to be, but it's very hard. Those are my big ones that usually will end up giving us a decent amount at the end. Transportation, we know we will have a credit because of the situation with the driving, which is getting better. It won't be reflected here because we do encumber the full contract. We just do the credits along the invoices as we go. But we're still on track. There's going to be no freezes as of right now. I don't see any issues. That may not be the case next month with just some things that are coming up. But as of right now, we're status quo. I think we're doing okay to still do our transfer at the end. Our end of year purchases that we need to do, I think we're okay right now.
Thank you.
If that helps. I know it's not
No, it
very
does.
specific, but there's still a lot of moving factors right now.
Yeah, and one of the big moving factors you may hear from Dawn about shortly that involve outplacement costs.
Anybody else have any questions for Stephanie? No? Okay.
Nice Nice
Thank
job,
you.
Stephanie.
Stephanie, you're able to stay with us through our old business discussion?
Yeah, yep.
Great, thank you. Okay, Director of Student Services report.
Hi, good evening, everybody. Can you all hear me okay? I can't see screens. I can't see the panel, so I just want to make sure you guys can hear me. Okay, thank you. I heard something. All right. I'm going to go ahead. I can't see the board because my face is being projected on the screen. So anyhow, good evening. I have a few updates for you, and I will address something that Dr. Britton addressed, as well as one of the questions that Stephanie was answering about our end of the year projections. So just a brief recap of where our numbers are. Our special ed numbers are 229 students with IEPs at this moment. And those are, that's up a little bit. That's up by 5 from last month. 504 plans, those are accommodation and support plans. We are up to 96, and that's up by 9 from last month as well. So one of the phenomenons that's going on, and I really expect a big jump next month, is our kids that have been in the SERBI process for this year and possibly a good part of last year. We're having to make a lot of referrals for some of those students because of failure to make progress in reading and math, especially at the Gildersleeve age level. So we're talking grades 2 through 4, because that's where we've been tracking really carefully. And we were cautious last year to not over-identify kids, because we wanted to make sure it wasn't a learning lag or a lack of progress due to the shutdown and kids learning remotely and all of the different things that were going on. So we monitored carefully, but we were cautious to not refer and identify. But I know, for example, we've had over 14 referrals at the Gildersleeve level just in the last couple of weeks with this last wave of SERBI reviews. So there's a lot going on. So you may see a little bit higher in numbers. To balance that off, we do have some kids that are exiting out. This month I had 8 students that exited out of special education and maybe went to a 504 plan for accommodations or went just back to regular mainstream classes. So it's exciting movement, and I'm not, it's not surprising. It's the typical way of ebb and flow that we have every year. So those are our numbers. To speak to Dr. Britton spoke about our meeting with the nurses, and especially with Dave Opachinsky this morning, making sure that all of the nurses understand their new role. They're excited. I was so happy to walk into Valley View School this morning and see our nurse of our littlest students in the nurse's office, no mask, everything looking, just as calm and natural, and it was great. So somebody commented earlier in the meeting about how it's nice to see everybody's full face, and that was exciting to see in the nurse's office. So the nurses are back to nursing. They're back to taking care of our children. They're back to not having to focus as extremely on contact tracing, but learning their new role as far as monitoring and being ready to spot escalations if we have them. And not just for COVID, but also for all the usual things that we would be watching for, things like head lice and influenza and other things like that can, spread amongst our friends in close settings. So that's the healthcare piece of COVID is turning us around nicely. The mental health concerns continue to grow. I spoke about this last month, and I think I've been speaking about it every month for the last 2 years, because it is a significant impact. And last month I spoke with everybody about some things that we're focusing on, restructuring our school psychologists and their roles to make sure we have school psychologists in every building, but still getting all of that testing done that was, like I spoke about earlier, has been held back a little bit. And then the mental health team really focusing on attendance and dysregulated behavior. So where that's taking us now is, the team, of course, isn't letting up by any means. They've got a lot of work that they're continuing to do with our students and our families and liaisoning with the community. And that's the community both where if children live in Portland or if they live in Hartford. So we want to make sure that we're pulling in all the resources that they may need for support as we transition to this post-COVID world. And so there's a lot of good stuff going on there, and I anticipate they'll be busy right up to the very last day of the school year. It's if you're watching the news at all, for local information, there's a bill on Capitol Hill that they're proposing right now to support mental health and especially accessibility to services, because a lot of our families are complaining that they realize their children need mental health support beyond just what the school can provide, but the idea is getting access to providers is very difficult still. Just the availability is an issue. So that's just a little update on the mental health. I wanted to give a little shout out. This is something that I don't talk about a lot, but I wanted to make sure that the board is aware of some really neat stuff that's going on around pre-vocational work. So I'm just going to highlight a couple of things. When we think pre-vocational, we think about kids learning how to fill out job applications and maybe do some job training, some practice inside their high school, and then even going to the outside to the community to learn about some job skills with a job coach or with somebody overseeing them with it, inside the scope of their special needs. But this pre-vocational training or pre-vocational work really begins at the 2nd, 3rd grade level, Gildersleeve School in the RISE program. Amy Raines is doing some really exciting work about working on some of those pre-vocational skills with kiddos that are going to need to practice on the social and the and some of those other skill sets that will help be preparing them. Of course, they're not going to work at the 2nd or 3rd grade level, but they're doing some really neat practice of things within the realm of their other studies. At Brownstone, Meg Campbell, who is one of our special ed teachers, has one of her students that does a coffee cart that he goes around, and one of his exciting parts of his school day is running a coffee cart to take orders and provide coffee and cocoa and tea to staff members. So it's built into that whole activity are all of the skills that he's working on through his goals and objectives. It's really exciting to see. And then at the middle school and high school level, of course, now we begin to fine tune even more. For example, we know our life skills program is doing a beautiful job with providing both in school and out of school opportunities. But I was even speaking with Mr. Hanush today in our Harbor program, and he was telling me that he's teaching kids how to do their taxes. The kids that may have a need or even an interest in learning how to do that 1040 EZ, it is tax season. So he ties that into his consumer math activities. So I just wanted to bring some of that up to everybody's attention for our students that have specialized learning needs. And then the last thing I just want to touch upon is the Cdoc report for this year. That's the special ed data system that does all of our, that takes into account all of our data. Everything has been finalized for the year, and we have a breakdown of our number of special ed students, the areas of disability. For example, there are, and out of the 229 students that we have with special education needs, 80 of them have learning disabilities, and 36 of them have a speech and language disability. So it's a nice breakdown, and I can forward that to the board after this meeting, so you have it for information. This is all part of our public report card, and that information is available on the government website, but it is neat to just take a look at our snapshot as it's finalized. So that wraps up my report. And is there any questions?
Any questions?
No.
I think we're good. Thank you, Dawn.
Thank you.
Great. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dawn.
Have a good night.
You too.
Okay, we have nothing listed under new business, so we will move on to old business. Portland Board of Education fiscal year 2023 budget and proposed modifications.
All right, so in your packets is a memo, and I emailed it all to you yesterday, and I apologize. I realize it's not 3/1/21, it is 3/1/22, so I don't know how that happened.
Missed
I think
that.
I missed that. So, and actually in the first line I see it's January 13th, 2022. So it is this year's, not last year's. Right? So we had some good news. When in the budget you approved on January 13th, you approved a budget with a placeholder for health insurance, right? And Stephanie had put in there a 9.9% increase, right? Which was something that she put in there on the advice of our town's insurance consultant. A few weeks ago, we learned that the percent increase is actually 5%. Right? So it's certainly better than what we budgeted for. The difference between that 9.9% and 5% is $127,554. Right? So we could certainly take that amount out of the budget. However, since then, Stephanie and I have been made aware of some additional expenses that we would recommend that we, use some of that otherwise reduction to plan for. Right? And I laid them out here for you, but I want to go over them with you, answer any questions that you might have about them. The first one is in regards to technology. Right? So, this year that we had the $168,000 Connectivity 1 grant and another $80,000 Connectivity 2 grant. That's great news. We're going to use that funding as soon as we get through all of the bureaucratic entanglements we need to get through to secure the funding, but we know we've been awarded it to purchase the next round of Chromebooks for our students, and that will put us in really good shape. We learned from Tom that those funds should only be used for hardware, specifically the Chromebooks and other technology hardware. We do need, of course, cases for those. So we're recommending that we use, of that $127,000, apply 15 of it to our technology supply line items so that we can purchase the Chromebook covers for the Chromebooks. These are very important. If the kids drop them or otherwise, students aren't always as gentle with technology as we might like them to be. They're very important in helping safeguard those devices. The second thing is, of course, like you heard me mention the atrocious things happening in Eastern Europe now. We can anticipate, and we're already seeing it, a jump in specifically in fuel prices. Inflation is already going up. Unfortunately, what we're living through now, we should build a hedge against. I'm concerned that $15,000 may not even be enough, but for now, it's definitely my recommendation that we put $15,000 into the fuel line item. We know the town is doing the same thing to build a little buffer against what we can anticipate will be higher prices for next year. I think that would be a prudent investment of some funds.
How did you arrive at that number?
Right now,
It's what was left.
It's
It's what was left,
yeah,
basically.
Yeah.
Probably not enough, but it's something that will get us there. We were already seeing higher prices before what happened. We haven't locked in a rate, so adding this on top of it, it worries me, but that's really all we could afford right now to put in,
Is this,
to be honest. That's on top, I think we had 15,000 in there originally, so we're up to 30,469.
And that's for heating fuel?
No, gasoline. Gasoline and diesel.
Okay, what about heating fuel?
Heating fuel is
Gas.
the oil tank that we have at the high school.
Mhm.
We're full right now. We're actually switching over to oil heat to help with the gas situation.
Mhm.
Carl just waits until probably like the beginning of March because we can't do the cold days
Right.
on oil. So hopefully we're switching over to that. We'll burn some, but not enough where we would need to fill it because we're full right now. So that's okay.
You're not looking to make any increase to the natural gas line?
I can make an increase to a lot of lines, but we only have what we have to work with. I mean, again, in all honesty, we picked what we thought was going to be affected the most. The natural gas, I'm hoping because of all the energy savings projects we did, that will help with the gas and electricity. It usually takes about a year for that to kick in. that's why we focused more on the accounts that we thought would be the most, that we would see the most hit with.
Okay.
And then the next one, certainly Stephanie can give you as much detail as you want. That involves our pension fund. So, I don't want to say older, I would say veteran employees are on the old, the legacy retirement plan, and we don't contribute to that. But newer employees are in the defined contribution plan where we match their contributions to their pension fund up to 6%. I just announced one very important retirement tonight, right? So that, as we hire, veteran employees retire and we hire new employees, we do have to account for our contributions to that retirement fund. So we're recommending that we add $15,000 into the budget to account for what we know now are some of the retirements that we're going to have.
Where are we adding the 15,000 to the newer account or to the old pension plan? The defined it was a defined
So the
pension
pension, that account is the defined contribution plan,
Okay.
basically.
And I think we did contribute to secretaries, did we not, to the secretaries and library media people, like 4%?
Library media folks would be certified, they would be teachers, they would be paying into the
They're all
PRB.
right, we don't have any more secretary type people, library media assistants, I guess.
There's a few older people that have been here a while that are still left. There's about 13 people left under the old
Right.
plan.
Right.
So as those people retire, it'll get higher and higher, the pension
But
line.
I was curious because I know that the secretary library media group, which was about 22 people at one time, we did receive a contribution from the board. I think at 4%, they were able to put in 6% or something.
Correct.
So it was, yeah. And the paras, I don't know what you contributed to. I think you did to the paras too.
Again, it depends on your hire date.
Yeah, it does.
So
I
there's some
understood
pairs in
that.
there, secretaries,
Right.
custodians, there's a non-union people. It's a mixture, honestly,
Yeah,
in there
it
right
is.
now.
Okay, all right, I'm curious.
Everybody now moving forward, unless they're on TRB, basically go
Are
into
under
the defined
401,
contribution plan.
Yeah, right, okay. All right. Yeah.
And then the last one is something I'm excited about, right? So these were sort of pre-pandemic plans, right? Two of our English teachers who we hired 2 years ago, we hired them with, one of them was a very talented journalist in a former career, and one of our new English teachers had started and been involved in a writing center. And when we hired these two English teachers, we had ideas that they would come in and help us bring a journalism course and a writing center to Portland High School. Of course, then the pandemic happened, and all those plans went on the back burner as the world went sideways. I've now reopened the conversation with the Portland High School English department about creating a journalism class which would yield a student newspaper for Portland High School, which would be wonderful, a writing lab for Portland High School, which would give students some direct tutoring and feedback in writing, and potentially lead to a literary magazine for Portland High School. So I think that these are two really exciting ideas. And we're just starting to develop them now. The curriculum committee is going to be discussing them at the next meeting, and it's something I would be behind 100%. I think they would be wonderful additions for our high school, and we have the two very talented people that could make this work for us. So I would like to see us set aside $15,000 to help us, as we go through the process of launching a student newspaper and a journalism course and a writing center for Portland High School.
So would that be in the form of a stipend?
Could be,
The
yep, it would be in the
15,000.
form of, it could be a number of things. Stipend, payment for 6 sections, and, the different things we would need to,
Yeah.
supplies, materials to
Yeah.
get this going.
Mm.
So have it, put aside in certified salaries now, but we would work within that to support the launching of these two things. Again, has to go through a process, curriculum committee has to be aware of it, we have to continue to develop these things, but if we did all that and then didn't have any money to fund it, it would be for naught. So I'm hoping that we can set this money aside with the idea of creating journalism writing lab that would yield a student newspaper and hopefully a literary magazine and writing support for the students at the high school, which I think would be awesome.
That's really neat.
Yeah. So if we add all those up, and then that leads us to the last page there, that we would recommend, if you embrace those 4 ideas for what we put back in, and of course, the reduction from the actual bid for our health insurance, we would get down to a $22,792,909 budget, which would be a 2.75% increase year to year.
Can I ask a question? I want to kind of push on what Sharon was just asking a minute ago. If you're saying that the 15,649 is likely not enough, but you're saying that's all that was there, and I'm looking at these numbers thinking that's $60,000 in additional expenses
Right.
versus 127 that we're reducing from our budget request. So if we anticipate actually needing more, why wouldn't we add more to the request for gasoline and or natural gas or wherever you anticipate that need? I just want to understand.
It's very difficult. I'm looking at Stephanie. We for that one line item, the gas line, we haven't applied a very scientific method to it. We're just aware of a war that just broke out 5 days ago, and are kind of guesstimating 15,000. It may be that we need none, but it may be that we need exorbitantly more, right? We're just aware that we have this 127. What would be a good idea to carve out from that? You're still keeping us in a place that, everybody's aware we got a lower, insurance rate. That how we both support the town and our ability to market and get our budget across the finish line with the voters, but also be reasonable and prudent, understanding that Putin is rolling tanks into Eastern Europe, and that is going to cripple financial markets and energy resources, right? Did anybody write me a memo from, consultants or people know this? No. It's just terrible things are happening in the world right now, and likely that means that we should set some money aside and be prepared to manage that.
Well, I think there are some predictions. I mean, it's not scientific and we don't know. The inflation rate is 1.8%. It's higher than it's been in 40 years. It's affecting food, energy, all of those things. And we have a supply chain that's a mess for a lot of reasons, beside the war in the war that's been started. And in the last month, the price of gas has gone up 50 or 60 cents. So I think it's a given that we're going to see higher energy prices in the next year, for sure. And I would agree, add more, and I don't know how we do that, but.
Yeah, and at this point, don't forget, this is where we are now, right? We're speculating, right? Certainly, if things got really bad, if gas prices tripled, right? Stephanie and I would be prepared to make budget freezes, make adjustments, do everything we can to mitigate. And then, of course, if that started to happen, likely like with COVID, we would start to see additional resources and support flow from federal and state coffers, right, to help us keep our schools heated and warm and manage all of those things. And if worse came to worse, we would always reserve the ability to go back to the town and say, gas prices have tripled. We tried to build a hedge. It wasn't enough. We need supplemental support to keep the lights on and keep our buildings warm, right? So, this is where we are now. This is our recommendation today. I think that's always subject to change and mitigation going forward.
And you're going to add it to the diesel line or unleaded or whichever? I'm just trying to figure out what our history has been looking at.
It's hard to
those
look
two
at the book
lines.
because diesel would go off of the busing, and because of with COVID and being out, and it's very hard. It's very hard to compare anything, honestly,
It is, right.
with COVID. I put it in the unleaded. I mean, there's not set accounts yet.
Right.
So if Tom comes to me and says diesel price is going to be whatever,
Mhm.
put it in there. I just know it's got to be in one of the gas lines at this point.
Okay.
Once we get the final numbers and it put through the town and approved, then I'll give an updated by object.
They are talking about taking
Okay.
the federal excise tax off of gas here in Connecticut. I think that was the recommendation. I don't know where that is right now. We can cross our fingers and hope and use that to watch.
I hear what you're saying, Charles, that it's not there's little science to base this on. I get all of that. I just want to know that we're asking for enough, because I hear you saying if it's not enough, we're going to be looking for budget freezes, and we just did that. This, you know, we were coming out of a pretty significant budget freeze, and I would hate to see that happen again to us this coming year, because I know that was hard on our schools.
Agreed. You know, I don't have an easy answer to that, except that, you know, Stephanie and I spoke with Tom, and I think this is where we are now. I think that, you know, a 2.75 will continue, allow us to move forward with hopefully what we need, pardon the pun, in the tank. But, you know, if it's not there, you know, Stephanie and I got really good at this. We would, you know, do what we need to do to mitigate it, and then hope that the people at the state and federal and local level would be seeing, and all schools would be in this, right, situation, and additional support would flow to us. I think we did experience that, right, that, you know, the year we froze and Stephanie and I were very anxious, very quickly, within the next 3 months, different spigots opened to support us and help make us whole and get us through, right? So, you know, this is a national crisis, a world crisis. It's something that hopefully very smart people are working this problem at different levels of national and international governance, and we're going to do our best to manage it at the local level.
I just have a, switching gears, I just had a question about I like the idea of the, you know, the journalism course and the writing center. I guess my question, kind of still being new to this, is this something that would typically have come to the board in the original budget, or is this idea coming forth now because of the surplus, because of the found money, if you will, with the health insurance?
It's coming now because between January, when you approved the budget, and now, the English teachers and I met, and they reminded me of, hey, remember when we were hired? we were, how do I explain it this way? We're kind of coming out of the COVID fog and reminding ourselves now of all of the great initiatives and things we started before COVID. That's wonderful, right? And when I sat down with them, I was like, oh my goodness, yes, we hired Kaylee because of her experience with writing centers, and Rob because of his journalism background, and I would love to support that, right? Now, certainly this gives us an opportunity to do that, and you know, you'll likely, as the curriculum committee meets and further vets these ideas, you know, this is, I think, I want to strike while the iron's hot, that this is here. Otherwise, we would have to wait another year and build it into next year's budget.
Any other questions? Okay, is there a motion anybody would like to make?
Sure, I'll move that the 2022-23 Portland Board of Education budget be amended to a total $22,792,909 request, reflecting a 2.75% increase over the 2021-2022 adopted budget.
I'll second it.
Meg or Tim?
Doesn't matter.
Seconded?
Give it to Tim.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, unanimous. All right, we'll move on to committee reports. Curriculum has a meeting coming up later this month. We had to kind of move things around a little bit. So we should have more to report later in the month or the beginning of April. Policy.
We have a meeting scheduled in a couple of weeks, and we have a plan for about 4 policies that we want to take a look at.
Okay, personnel is moving right along with our contract negotiations. We should be just about done with most, but not quite all, of the negotiations hopefully this month, and starting on the other 2 left to negotiate. So there'll be more to report hopefully later this month in that regard. Building and grounds.
We don't have a meeting scheduled, but now that Carl is going to be retiring, we need to have a meeting, I believe, and discuss the future of building and grounds.
New leader.
A new leader, yes.
Correct liaison.
CREC will have, CREC is hoping to get people to come to the Friday hearing in Hartford at the Education Committee because they're asking for an 8% funding increase to their state funding for magnet school tuition. They haven't had one since 2011, so they're overdue. And the meeting there's a meeting coming up on Wednesday, 2 weeks from now. I don't have the date in my head, but there'll be another meeting. And CREC did extend the mask mandate for their magnet schools till the end of March.
Board of Selectmen?
3 quick little things. First of all, they talked about how the plant in Hartford that does all the trash,
The trash tag.
recycling, stuff like that is closing. So our costs as a town are going up. I don't know what our schools use, probably a private company maybe. But it sounds like everything's gonna be going up in the near future because of that plant closing. They're gonna have to ship it out of state. So,
Another one.
number one.
Compost.
Second thing was just kind of more of an interesting thing. We have an agreement with Middletown. They share our police services and everything. We renewed that interlocal agreement for 5 more years. And then last but not least, they mentioned the Easter egg hunt is on for 4/9, so everybody's excited about that.
Oh. Where is it gonna be?
He didn't say. Ralph didn't know exactly the location yet.
It's usually
It's usually
in the
at
field
Valley
at
View.
Valley View.
At Valley View.
That's right.
Yep.
That's
Maybe
right.
at the new park.
Okay. Committee on Solidarity?
Their next meeting is on March 8th, and presently they're, I think the survey's still open. Is it
I
closed?
think through today, so
This
I
is-
hope everyone's done the survey, but if not, you might have
Yeah, you
3
get-
more hours to get it done.
Yeah, so the survey's coming to an end, but hopefully they've gotten a lot of responses.
And they're planning a Solidarity Month from June 15th to July 15th. So I'm sure they'll have more information about that coming out soon.
Great. Equity and Inclusion Coalition?
We haven't met, I think, since our last meeting.
I can't remember if we talked, the last meeting that we had was run by Eric, not the folks from the Connecticut School Change.
Right.
We had breakout rooms. I don't think we talked about that at a meeting. We had some breakout rooms and we talked about, like looking at a scenario, hypothetical scenario that a teacher could be faced with and things that that person could have improved upon, ways that it impacted the different students. So it's interesting seeing it from that perspective. It was not our normal type of meeting, and I think it should be back to normal next month.
Right,
probably.
and our next meeting is, I have it here, is March 10th.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I do have that.
School Facilities Study Committee?
We have a meeting coming up
March
next
14th.
Monday, 14th. And then we were looking at meeting every other week, I believe, starting in April and May, so that we can finish this plan before the end of June, which is what we're shooting for.
Oh.
Youth Services, I'm sorry. Okay.
That's from Main Street.
I do too. Youth Services Advisory Board?
We had the next meeting is scheduled for March 22nd. On February 16th, a few of us were on. We had the community talk on restorative practices, and that was, I don't have all my notes in front of me, but that was a great presentation. I'm not going to remember the people's titles, but there was a person.
Joe Brummer.
Yeah.
He's
yeah.
the main guy, Joe Brummer.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And, but they did a nice job. I hadn't really known what, restorative practices were about, so we had the meeting ran way over. We had a great conversation and lots of dialogue after that, so they're willing to do, many more sessions for
Great.
the community as well, so.
Audience of Citizens? Does anyone like? None? Okay. Board of Education member comments? I'll start tonight. I just wanted to remind everybody about the budget process coming up this month. Our Our workshop with the Board of Selectmen is scheduled for Tuesday, March 22nd, 7 o'clock. That would be in this room, and I guess still going forward on Zoom, although I'm not positive of that. I think that there's nothing's been posted on the town website, so we'll pass along that information when it becomes available, just to confirm whether or not this will just be in person or on Zoom as well. And budget deliberations are scheduled for the 29th, 30th, and then the budget adoption vote could be either of those nights, depending on the deliberations, how they go, and if not, Wednesday, April 6th, I guess, would be the deadline for the adoption of the budget.
Sharon, can I ask you a question about this? So they have a public hearing scheduled on Tuesday, March 15th. It's the same night that we have our board meeting, and in the past, it's that we've been in the same building and we, you know,
Right.
adjourn our meeting in order to run
Yeah,
over
we
to be present.
usually have our meetings adjourn and then.
Right.
And then
work-
resume.
yeah.
So I'm
So-
curious how that's gonna work, if where are we supposed to be that night?
So Meg Wright put us in the same room we used to be in at the high school for that day. So we'll be at the media center, and then we'll adjourn and go over to the auditorium.
Okay.
So calendar
Our Board of
accordingly
Ed
will
The
be
board-
at
And that's
yeah,
not
so
our
the-
workshop, that's the
15th
public
meeting. That's the public meeting where Ryan Curley will present,
presents,
Charles
right.
presents, and then there'll be town, selectmen, everybody there.
So logistics-wise, for folks who have been tuning into our meetings on Zoom, will that meeting on March 15th, will our Board of Ed meeting be on Zoom for people, or do they need to come in person if they want to?
So
see the
that I'm
meeting?
not sure. I don't know if it's set up in the center over there.
That's a good question. It could be, Dylan.
If it's in the auditorium, we can live stream it. I don't have the ability to host a Zoom meeting there.
Okay.
I don't know if the town was
And how
planning, I don't know
about
if
in
the
In
town
the
was
library, our meeting would be in the library, so, is that,
That we could do,
okay.
but I can't do both at the same time.
Well, I'm assuming ours would be, we would be running over to the hearing and then coming back and doing the rest of our meeting after the fact, is that how we usually do it?
Yeah, let's work on logistics.
Yeah, we'll have to work with Sam Tucker also.
Yeah, we can figure it out. We have smart people around us.
But I do know that Meg reserved that room for us that night,
Perfect.
just because of that.
Thank you for pointing that out. I missed it on the good old schedule.
Yes.
Are there any other Board of Ed member comments? Tim?
No?
I want to
Right.
update everybody on March the 4th, which is Friday. There's a big big committee, education committee meeting, public hearing. There's 16 bills in front of this committee that have everything to do with the Chef O'Neill agreement, remote learning. They want to back up the date to January of 2023 instead of June of 2023. There is the magnet school tuition information. There is a bill in front of for redoing the formula for excess cost ECS. They want to redo it and remove the cap. And so that was a survey. I think we asked Dawn, Dawn got a survey, and we were told to, as CAVE members, we were told to ask our special services people to fill out the survey about what costs were for the last 3 years, so we could present that to the committee. So there will be some hearing, and they're encouraging people to listen and to give testimony if you are so moved. But there's a lot of bills. It's a short session, and I can't imagine we're going to get through all of this. The other thing is the Children and Public Health Committees met on last Friday, and CAVE, I was the person who gave testimony, but there were about 300 people that talked about the mental health of our children in schools, and also early childhood, and what a crisis it is, and the bill is huge, and it's got 130 pages worth of stuff in it. Hopefully they'll be smart and build on what we have already, and build out community resources, as well as increasing the number of mental health professionals, because that's where the problem is. We have people waiting for 2 or 3 months, can't get to a psychiatrist or a psychologist or a counselor. And one of the bills is, one of the components is to put more social workers in our schools, but it doesn't serve, it serves a purpose, but then it doesn't serve the purpose, because once you identify that behavior or that mental health need, where do you send them? and where do they go? So, everybody that was on the making testimony pleaded, and there may be a comprehensive plan to have a cabinet of children's mental health at some point, which hopefully doesn't add another layer of legislative stuff, and it actually helps people, because the crisis is now, it's not 2 years from now, when a lot of these things will be implemented.
And just so that it's clear for everyone, this meeting is at the...
It's at the state capitol. You can go to a YouTube video. You can also go to CTN and watch it live. I don't know how long this went on the other day. I was number 37, and I went on from 9 o'clock to 1 o'clock. And at 1 o'clock, I was able to give the written statement that we had developed at CABE. And then there were 250 people beyond me that had been assigned to talk. So they probably went into the wee hours of the morning, or at least the late hours. So, but you can listen to it to see. It's fascinating.
What time is it scheduled to start?
It starts at 9, and the first hour is usually legislators posturing and making comments.
Legislating.
Yes, they're legislating.
And I think anybody who wished to speak, there's a registration process online, and it's all over Zoom now, so you don't have to be in Hartford in person to do it.
Right, but you have to register ahead of time. So I think the cutoff date was March the 2nd, and if you get in, you'll be assigned a number, and then they'll put you on. They put your name on the screen, and they will call your name and tell you that you're going to be speaking. So it's a little bit nerve-wracking. I have to say I was nervous about it, but it went really smoothly, and I got a couple of compliments from people from Demas, and Christy Carpino reached out and also sent me a text message. So it was well heard, and people really listened. So it's advocacy at its best, because it's our voices, and so it's a good thing.
That's great.
And that's it. So pay attention, and all those 16 bills, hopefully there'll be some good work.
Pearl?
Yeah, I wanted to talk just for a quick second about the restorative practices conversation that Youth and Family Services held that you brought up already, because I was really happy to participate in that, and it got me curious to know more about how restorative practices are being implemented in our school district. I know we hear about it occasionally from Dr. Britton and our administrators, but I would like to have a better understanding of how and where restorative practices are being implemented in our district. I'm not sure how other folks feel about that, but I would be very interested in that coming to the board. Joe Brummer, who was one of the speakers, has a new book out called Building a Trauma-Informed Restorative School, which I have on reserve from the library. If anybody else wants to read it, I'd love to talk about it. That would be kind of interesting and fun. It was a really great workshop, and they closed it out by, and he kind of specializes in how this is, how restorative practices work in schools, and he offered to have more events in the future, or to work with our school district to bring, he's interested in partnering. So I just wanted to throw that out there and say, I know I would really love to learn more.
I think our policy would dictate that we look at restorative practices and really make sure that it's not the alternative to what we do for discipline, that we actually use it, because it does work, and particularly with high school and middle school children or students, it really is more effective than punitive, consequential kind of behavior or practices.
Yeah. And I know too, just to add, that I know some of our school-based equity teams are looking at discipline data, or at least this was true. The middle school equity team was looking at this last year, and I imagine the other schools are looking at this this year as well. I think that that's part of this conversation around restorative practices and looking at our discipline data in the district, and so I would like that to be kind of part of the conversation.
Is there a consensus that the board would like to hear more about the restorative practices?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
And discipline data as well.
I don't object to it.
Sorry?
He doesn't object.
I don't object to it in any
Okay.
way.
All right, is that something we can put on an agenda in the
Yeah,
future?
I've just, the next one that we're gonna hear about is drug and alcohol. That's coming up, and then we'll do after that.
Yeah, and Youth Services is doing a vaping program, and Cindy Lafferty was given the name of a woman from Southern Connecticut, Victoria Adams, who will have interns come into classrooms to talk about the dangers of vaping and other drug use. So Youth Services is working on that very diligently as part of the prevention grant that we have from Demas.
Stacy, any comments? No? Lauren? Nothing to,
I'm good.
nothing? Okay. We have nothing to discuss in executive session. So is there a motion to adjourn?
Real quick before you motion to adjourn, get your Little Mermaid tickets. I just checked on my Ticket Leap. They're linked at the high school website, May 18th, 7 to 10, or there's a matinee, March 19th. Sorry, I said May. March 18th, 7 to 10, March 19th, 1 to 4, and 7 to 10. So get your tickets. They're going quick.
Yeah.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you for that reminder.
That is good.
Right. Now I'll entertain a motion.
Oh, I'll make the
Everybody wanna
motion to
stay?
adjourn. Everybody wants to stay tonight. Yeah, it's not 9 o'clock yet.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Thank you all.
Thank you.